Delighted to be joined now by Mark Kenny. Mark is a client director at Explio.
Morning, Connor. Yes.
How are you? Thanks for coming. Thanks for coming in, and thanks for joining. So, for context, then for our audience, Mark is one of the corporate partners on the program. I was chatting to him beforehand. I think we've sent him about 15 submissions, and he tells me he has a workshop this afternoon to get through those, and so we'll be hearing back from them. But you were quite excited with some of the early stuff.
Absolutely, yeah, it's been brilliant. I mean, we like to think ourselves as an innovative company, bringing innovative solutions to our clients. But often those solutions are not necessarily our own IP, if you will. It's the connection of different technologies or different capabilities or different talents to bring an end-to-end solution to a customer where we see a problem.
Yeah.
You know, and what I've also seen from that engagement is the wealth of talent and creativity where people have seen the industry problem and saying, I'm going after that. I believe I can crack that one. And that's just fantastic.
Brilliant. Thanks. Tell us a little bit about Explio. Who are you and what do you do?
A great question. So like a lot of companies, we're changing over time. So previously in Ireland, we would have been known as SQS, Software Quality Systems. So our superpower, our DNA is quality assurance. So making sure the quality of code in any of our customers' environments through projects is top notch and is acceptable, but functionality wise and performance wise. In recent times, we've merged with an organization in France to bring a heavy engineering front. And I suppose it's with that new hat. So Explio as a brand is 2 years old. But we have we've just a broad reach now. We have 15,000 consultants working in the automotive industry, to the medtech industry, to the pharma industry, and my sector, of course, is finance and banking and payments. So, yeah, what do we do? Everything from supporting customers with R&D and product design, all the way through to quality assurance, project management, even software development in recent times as well. So,
okay. I have seen a couple of questions coming in. Joe has a really interesting question on international selling that I'm going to pick up at the Q&A. And then there's a really interesting angle emerging on EdTech and how does that. So we'll try and pick that up as we move through into the panel discussion. Mark, we're talking a lot of digital transformation and innovation. Give me your sense on it. Give me the layman's view. For me, being the layman, not you, obviously.
Well, I think both mean, depending on who you're talking to, it can be widely different perspectives. So I think innovation to the individual and digitization to an individual from one customer to the next can be very, very different. So if I'm talking to a bank, I might be talking to about how I can help them improve their customer engagement process by, maybe it's a chatbot on the front end or some sort of omni-channel experience for the customer. But the bank themselves may have a view, well, actually, we're doing a ton of automation in the back end by doing stuff with our operating systems and by changing our heavy technology in the back end. So depending on who you're talking to, it can be multiple different things. But for me, it's how do we do things better and easier? How do we make technology or our products and services more adaptable, more user-friendly, so we can all consume them from a web perspective?
And the last 18 months has been a particular chapter in society, in our lives, in work, in business with the pandemic. Has it accelerated that drive towards automation, towards change in your view?
Well, most definitely. Well, I've seen it in my own work. So like everybody here, we've all had to work from home, some to a greater or lesser degree, but, very few people in the office, and even our office is only opened up 1 day a week, and that's not even mandatory, so we're all hybrid. In fact, dare I say, I'm at 2 conferences at the same time while I'm speaking to you. I'm also in Berlin at a banking digital summit. So it's just, the power of being in 2 places at the same time. Who would have known? But what then we bring it back to the customers. They are looking for different ways of getting stuff done. But it was interesting. I picked up on Paul's point earlier on. You might come up with a solution, but it can be really hard to get it through the mindset. And maybe there's a dialogue we could have later on that.
Yeah. But that's at the heart of what we're trying to do here. Is actually, how do we get big companies like you with emerging scale-up companies on this side, and how do we actually get that process to work together? Why did you get involved in the Innovation Exchange? Were you of the same view as us, that there was that kind of disconnect? And were you looking for something that you couldn't find?
Yes and no. So I've come from both sides of it. So I've been in the big tech companies. I spent a long number of years working with IBM and HCLs who keep rattling through. We've got great innovation, but equally we found it difficult for customers to get on board with that. But equally I was there thinking, now I'm in Explio. Who's got tech that's out there that's interesting? Who's done something really different? And need someone to help them take it into their customer. So there's a couple of sides to it. But ultimately, who is my end customer? What do they want? And often, unless you can get the dialogue right at the right point in time, you may have the best widget to do something, but if the customer doesn't need that widget at the time, it can be very, very frustrating. And I think working through your clients and working through the next customer that is interested in that what you have to offer is very important. And I'll give you an example. Within Explio, as I said, we like to think ourselves as being innovative, and we do have an innovation champion. And last year we ran our own internal hackathon. Out of the hackathon came, smishing, which is really fresh. We're all being plagued by nuisance phone calls and texts into our phones at the moment. So one of our staff, and innovation can often come from within and very naturally and organically. So why don't we look to see if we can fix that on the device of a phone of our customers? So we said, the bank's going to be loving this. They're losing money. They're at the beck and call of fraudsters that they can't control. And we talked to Pillar Bank 1, Pillar Bank 2. Very interesting, Mark. Very interesting, Mark. But we got talking to another smaller bank and said, do you know what? We have just done something really similar. And the two names of the two products were almost identical. And I said, you've got to come on board with us. And, I'm leaving here to work through some paperwork with those guys. So, you can have the best solution tackling the biggest problem in the world, but unless your customer's in the right mind at the right time, and they've thankfully helped me beat my way through the legal and the procurement processes, by being passionate about what they're trying to achieve.
But it's kind of very interesting because for us in the room, as mostly the scale-ups and the SMEs, we have to convince you, who then has to convince the end customer.
Yeah.
So as we hopefully engage with you in the weeks ahead, what's that going to look like? I mean, are we holding hands together and going to see your customers? Are you taking from us and going to see your customers? What do you envisage happening?
Look, to me, innovation is about collaboration. So, I can't, represent the team here in my customer, but I do see that we would go in a sort of a partnership mode. Now, that's in me and my world. Now, notwithstanding that, the larger Explio, and I mentioned automotive, and I was very interested. I caught up with Tim also this morning.
Tim's been busy this morning.
And it was just absolutely fascinating to think. I said, there's a phone call I can actually make. I can introduce Tim potentially to my colleagues in Europe who are in the automotive space, who provide products and services into factories. And I wouldn't have thought of that only if I wasn't here. So it's that collaboration piece and spending time with BIC and with the with all the folks here that is opening up the channels.
So as we move this forward in the kind of the months ahead, it's going to be very much. I know we've received submissions from the guys. You're reviewing them today, hopefully. Pick some of those we start to work it through, and that's when the work really starts. Where we roll up the sleeves, we identify specific customers, specific use cases, and opportunities, and get out and about.
And there may be an actual need that we have there, that one of those technologies or one of those partners say, actually, that would be really interesting in our customer over here. And we're exploring that. So that's, this afternoon is a busy day for us, to sit down and review all those submissions. And look, it'll be a bit of a beauty parade. It has to be. No, yes, interesting. Let's have a follow-up, and we'll be back to you, Conor, in due course when we've concluded that exercise.
But presumably as well, and you mentioned timing, which I think is really important, and getting to the right customer at the right time. What we're trying to build here, I think, as an ecosystem is not just a one-off or it's an ecosystem we're trying to build here. And I suppose what I'm saying is to the participants that while no might be no today, that doesn't mean, there is another opportunity, there's another sector. And I think what the offer we're trying to build, and we're at a very early stage working with Liz and Louise and the team at SkillNet. But actually, if we could build an ongoing set of engagements where people are in this marketplace, I think was the phrase Liz used, and there's opportunities to buy and sell within that. I think Absolutely. If we could get to that.
I think it's brilliant. And the concept of a marketplace, so we've the Play Store and the Apple Store and all these kind of things. I'm now seeing banks embracing that technology by bringing their customers, like their consumer customers and their commercial or merchant customers together. So absolutely an ecosystem in the marketplace sounds really, really exciting.
The Exchange Store. You heard it here
Store,
first.
Yeah.
Tell me about your experience on the program thus far. What's worked for you? What hasn't worked? How have you found it?
Really positive. First, I haven't found anything that doesn't work. If anything that doesn't work, is probably me and my timing, because I may not be moving my organization as fast as the guys or you guys might like. But that's on my side, if you will.
Yeah.
But the everything so far as a process has been superb. It's been really, really good. I enjoyed the opportunity to share my thoughts, and the feedback, the instant feedback I got was really, really exciting to say, okay, I've tapped into something here. So I got real energy out of that. And obviously I have to capitalize that internally in my organization, and then I have to grow that organically in my organization. Even though we say we're innovation, is that one or two people, or is that the whole business? You know, so I have to work all that through. So that's part of the journey that I'm going on. But everything I've got and the feedback I've got plays really, really well into help me have those dialogues.
Very good. You, when we were on the call a couple of weeks back, you have a specific focus, if you will, on banking as a vertical sector.
Correct.
But what's interesting is, and I'd love your view on this, banking is, while it is about money and banking, it's actually much, much wider than that. So a lot of the guys here who are talking to you, it's not, they didn't come into it with, I'll sell to a fintech or whatever. So talk to me, if you will, about your vertical sector, because I'd love to get, and you did talk a little bit on the call with us, what's going on in that kind of banking sector, and where then do the opportunities arise outside of that direct area? Okay,
so if I was surprised, I heard this fact this morning. N26 is the second largest bank by capitalization in Germany. They're a digital bank. Who would have thought, with all the bricks and mortar and all the gold and all the stuff that's out there, it's a digital bank created less than 10 years ago, is the second biggest bank in Germany. So to me, that speaks volumes. Everything is changing. The banking industry is changing. Payments is changing. We're all able to... I got a text, a WhatsApp from my daughter. Mum said you'd give me 70 quid. And I said, so I had to move money from one account onto my Revolut. It's in my daughter's. And that's, so she's off to a Debs at the weekend, and that's to pay for her nails and her hairdo, So that the speed, while I'm in a conversation in two conferences at the same time, I can do that. Who would have thought that 5 years ago? It was just phenomenal. So it's the ability to continue to build at that level of change and to fix the back end within the banks allowed to happen. Remember the mainframe? I'm ex-IBM. I still love the mainframe. Cost per transaction, second to none. Its resilience, absolutely fantastic.
Yeah, yes, 400 or whatever it was.
But it's old architecture, and to get away from the cost of supporting the systems that sit on mainframes has to be re-architected out of there. So you've seen likes of new products, you need new core banking systems, all emerging, all cloud-based. So look, that's where it's all going to. But there's people starting this stuff from fresh. Telcos, another industry, granted. Again, there was old legacy systems in the billing engines. In Dublin here, our telco had designed and built out their own billing engine. So what's to say another bank isn't going to do the same, a new core banking system for themselves in the cloud? And are we going to see further dilution of the banking marketplace? I mean, we're going to be specialist banks going to exist for the segment of one, because marketing and the ability to do big data and understand your customer, we can now market and target campaigns to the individual. So that's going to be interesting how that all rolls up, because making the right offer at the right time is ultimately what it's all about.
So the banks have to, and we're on your vertical sector, have to re-engineer that kind of back end, and they've got to get rid of the big on-prem servers, and they've got to do all of that. But presumably, it's not just that. Like when you think about innovation, they've got to think about the culture, they've got to think about the organization, they've got to think about customer experience, they've got to think about everything that goes with that. Are they examining it in your view? Because we've guys here in wellness, we've got guys in, organizational design, we've got lots. Are the banks saying, yeah, we need to fix kind of the servers and the the back end bit, but we've got to fix everything else that goes with it as well.
Well, of course, the question is, what is a digital bank? To take your question another way, is it because we wear sneakers because the dress code allows us to wear sneakers, or is it because how we orientate ourselves? It's a really great question. I'm seeing the technology lead for sure, and I think the rest is coming. I think the cultural piece is coming, how organizers has been set up is coming. I think we've seen a huge reduction in the headcount in the banks. I mean, they could have been tens of thousands, now they're in the single digit thousands, by the way, a headcount. So yeah, change is most definitely afoot. And they are getting faster and more agile at delivering. But they probably still have a ways to go, but there's plenty looking at them. You've got Google, for example. Google is doing projects, I believe, with Deutsche Bank in South America. And when they get their hands on this stuff, when they get the IP of what a bank is, that's going to be phenomenal. I don't know if anybody was watching the rugby last weekend. It was on AWS. It was on Prime, Amazon Prime. I said, they're not a sports channel. And now,
what's this doing here?
You're like, what's going on? I thought it was on RTE or BBC or Channel 4. No, I had to go off and find it online. So the speed of change and big tech, as well as fintech, is going to play a significant role in the industry moving forward.
It's an interesting observation, because one of the things we find in the kind of the startup world and in that early stage scale up where we are here is the fear or the belief that big companies won't buy from small companies. In other words, no one ever gets fired for buying IBM because it's a safe choice and you go.
Yeah.
And our guys are trying to convince large organizations to work with a much smaller organization. Have you seen that resistance as you're working through?
Yeah, and I experienced it myself. We might be a much bigger organization, but we're trying to sell into organizations that are even bigger than us again and more global than us again. So no, it is a challenge. There's no question about it. But sometimes a partnership with the right technology and the right scale. So like, what could I offer Paul, for example, if I go full circle on that one? Some of the resistance from the procurement or the legal system is, Paul's got great tech, but I'm a bank. If he loses my data and I have reputational damage, I can't take him to the courts and sue him. I can't recover my losses. But maybe my bank balance, not that I want to add more value than that, but maybe Explio, you're a €1 billion organization. Maybe there's a collaboration piece that could work, and there's other services we could wrap around the technology that could help Paul in his conversations. Okay, I hear your problem, Mr. Customer. How about I bring in a scale partner to help me with that? So we're not as big as an EY or an Accenture, but we do all those same things, and we do have the mindset, but we're a lot more flexible, a lot more agile.
And presumably for you, and most definitely for us in the room, that combination of joining together gives us bigger firepower going into the big guys.
Correct. So we've got our day-to-day customers, which the point-to-point solutions may fix a need in the gap, and we would put project management services or agile services around, or quality assurance services, and which is all good. It helps the complete story when I take your product from any of the guys in the room, but I know when it enters my environment, it's good. We've done the proper due diligence around it. Fantastic. But there's also what we could do together to point somewhere else.
I'm happy to take questions from the floor if anyone has any. I'll come to you in a second. What does success look like for you from this program, Mark?
Things like the previous speaker said, I would love to write a PO to someone. I would love to find the right project to do the right thing where just cash changing hands. Because if I'm writing a check, that means someone's giving me one too. So, and that's how we get to a point in time where, and the activity we're doing later today will say, who are the organizations we're interested in working in, and what problems do we see that we can jointly fix? And if we get one of our clients on board to that, or one of your clients on board and help with a transaction. It all comes down to a transaction.
Excellent. I brought that.
Where do I sign?
Does anyone want to jump in from the floor? Anyone have anything that we want to take? Any questions from Mark on this? No?
I like you, Theo.
There's an offer
Fantastic.
you don't get any day. In terms then, last question before I leave you go, in terms of timing, Mark, if just to give everyone a sense of where we're going with this, if we're in review stage with you kind of first week, you're reviewing it today, first week in November. I'm put words in your mouth, but we could probably get into some detailed engagement across November where we're getting back into pitching. Is that kind of in line with your timeline?
Yeah, no, absolutely, yeah. And what's great is our office is opening up, so the ability to sort of workshop and brainstorm in a sort of more face-to-face capacity when we shrink down is what I envisage doing, and to be able to do that through November would be fantastic.
Right. So as we're getting into December, then we've identified a couple of really good projects that we can work on, and hopefully then we're getting into some client engagement. We're having some discussion going there.
Yeah, if we can find them, and again, all that dialogue and collaboration will help figure that out. Yeah, but I would be hopeful that one or two conversations comes up of merit, and we should be able to tease them through December into the new year.
Fantastic. Mark, thanks a million. I know you're going to stick around with us. You're going to join us for a panel discussion at the end, and we appreciate your time. Appreciate you.
No, you're very welcome.